Hi everyone, this is Heba from My Little Journal, and today I'm really excited to be sharing with you my 2021 setup in my book journal. I've shared this book journal with you previously, but I don't think I've ever set it up like on camera and shared it with you guys. So I thought it would be fun to do that for 2021. All I do is I set it up for once, like throughout the year, for the year, and just fill it out as I go. This is 2019. And then like I get into 2020, I have plenty of space. I can use this for years to come. And that's for 2020. And I thought it would be fun to kind of set up 2021 with you. So what I did was I did all the boring stuff before I started recording. I kept two spreads empty because this is going to be where I stamp out 2021. And then my calendar on the opposite side. This is my reading challenge, my every night reading challenge. Like I read every night, or I try to. My bookshelf. This is the books that I will be reading in 2021. So I'll literally just fill it out and add my stars rating. I think this is my A to Z challenge. And then my TBR is going to go on this space and the opposite. And then this one's my bingo challenge. I just try to add a few different challenges as I go. I just have fun with this. And this is like going to be my favorite books and how many books I read each month. I did use this stencil from Ink by Jing. Love the stencil. It really saves you time with counting and all that good stuff. And because I've been doing this for a while, it's just become so much easier to do as I go. So this year when I put up all or set it up with the lines and counted and all that good stuff, it was pretty easy to put together. I know I want to be adding my Reading with Heba book club as well. If you haven't joined me on that account, I definitely recommend it. We are going to be reading Daisy Jones and the Six in January, which I'm really excited about. So I want to figure out what I'm going to do with that, but maybe not in this video. Maybe later on I'll find something. I do go on Pinterest. I do go on Instagram for inspiration for my book journal. So a lot of these are not my ideas. I literally just find something that inspires me and add it to my book journal. And that's how I come up with these types of like ideas for my journal. But anyways, we're going to start. I'm going to fast forward this, do some voiceover, and get working on my book journal, put this together. I do also want to mention that I have loads of book stamps that I just pulled out, my calendar stamp set. All these stamp sets will work to add a little something to my spreads. I think it's going to be fun to use these to add, some cuteness to my book journal. I also do have some really old die cuts as well from book themes and things like that. So I pulled those out as well, thinking I could use those to make my pages look cute. So anyways, let's stop talking and start working on my book journal. I'm really excited for 2021. I think it's going to be really fun to put together, and I hope you enjoy watching me set up this book journal. Okay, you guys, let's start working in my reading journal. I'm going to start with my title page, and all I'm going to do is use these large number stamps from the Paper Person shop and stamp 2021. By the way, I will be linking everything that's still available down in the description box for you. And whatever is out of stock, I'll try to find something similar to what I'm using. Anyways, I'm going to use my black archival ink from Close to My Heart. This will not bleed through your pages. This is why I love Archer and Olive like journals, because the pages are so thick. You can use any ink pad and you're not going to have any type of bleed through, or well, the stuff I use doesn't bleed through. I'm just going to stamp 2021 right in the center. I'll even use the filler numbers to fill it out with some really subtle gray. I tend not to use a lot of color in my journal ahead of time because when I fill out my reading journal throughout the year, I tend to use a lot of highlighters and color. So I don't want to stick to one color and have to stick to that throughout the year, if that makes sense. So if I use like subtle neutrals then I can use whatever highlighters I have and not have to like stick to that certain color. Now again, sticking to keeping it simple with the colors, I am going to use I'm going to go through this die cut pack, and I'm going to try to find something subtle like the story time banner and just add that in the corner and call it done. Now for my next spread, I wanted to stamp out the calendar. I love the stamp set from Kelly Perky. It's an old one. This is not available anymore, but I'm going to just use it and stamp out my calendar. There is no wrong or right way to do this. If you want it to be like in straight lines, I recommend to draw out your lines and count ahead of time. But for me, I don't count. I don't like counting, and I just go for it. So you can see like it's not perfect. Some of them are slanted, some are not in a straight line. But again, that doesn't bother me. I just want to get it done. The purpose of this is not perfection. The purpose of this is to actually document what you're reading. So I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to fill out this page with my calendar, and I'll even grab like one of the block stamps from the stamp set to add a hint of color. I end up just using a very subtle, beautiful blue ink to just stamp right over my months, and that way I brought in some color, but it's not too much color. So at the top of my page, I felt like it needed a little something. So I'm actually going to go through my die cut pack again, and I found a pencil that said Dive Deep. And I thought, you know what, this fits perfectly, adds a little bit of cuteness to my spread. So I'm going to go for it. I just end up adding it right above my calendar, and I can move on to my next spread. One thing I really love doing is reading every night, and this is a challenge I've been doing for years. It really helps me read more and sleep well. So I always have this kind of tracker. I love this style of tracking my reading. It's really easy to keep up with. So what I'm going to do is just stamp every night challenge. I'll also go through my reading stamp sets and stamp a few stacks of books on each side just to bring in some color. I'll even fill them out with some color, like different ink pads. I think I end up using like yellow and blue. Again, trying to keep the colors very subtle because this tracker gets really, really colorful really fast. Kind of stick to one color for each month. So, and I use my Tombow markers, or I'll use my mild liners. So I just try to keep everything subtle and, you know, simple, because I know once I start filling out my calendars and my trackers, it gets pretty colorful pretty quick. Another great way to add color when you're stamping in black ink is just use your markers, your mild liners, your Tombow brush pens, whatever you have on hand, and just put a line through your title. It really adds a nice hint of color. Anyways, I also want to stamp out the months for my tracker, so I'm going to use that same stamp set from Kelly Perky. It had the months on there, so I'm just going to use those. They fit perfectly in my boxes. Again, this stamp set is not available anymore, but I promise to try to find something similar and link it in the description box for you. Now that I'm done, we can move on to one of my favorite spreads. It's the bookshelves. I love to keep track of the books I read throughout the year using this method. It's so fun to do, and I just love stamping it out. So what I'm going to do is actually use a Studio Calico stamp set. It has the large books. I always measure my bookshelves to fit these large books, and I'm just going to stamp them randomly. Whatever fits goes in the bookshelf, as many as I can. I usually read between 50 to 55 books a year, but I'm okay with stamping more because you never know, maybe I'll read more. And in between my books, I like to add little things like globe, plant, I don't know, mug, whatever I can fit in there and make it look all pretty and cute, I'll just go ahead and add it. And again, like I said, it's just random. I just stamp as many as I can fit. I'll even sometimes like cover a portion of the books to make them fit perfectly in between each other, just to fill out my shelves with more books. By the way, you can always draw these books yourself. Like, it's not that hard to do, but I feel like I have this book stamp and everything looks like cleaner and more cohesive, so I just go for it. And like I said earlier, I don't mind stamping at all. It's something I really enjoy doing, so I just kind of go for it. And like I said, if you have the stamp set, go for it. And if you don't, you can always draw it out yourself. Now, in between my books, I said earlier that I'd like to stamp like plants and little things like that. So I'm gonna go and grab one of my close to my heart stamp sets. It's just a plant stamp set. And I'm gonna stamp a few stamps in between my books. It's a great, spot to add color, because I will go in later on and fill out the stamped plants and the globe and the coffee cup with my mild liners or my Tombows, and it brings in a little pinch of color to my shelves. You can see me kind of add a little bit of pressure while I'm stamping in my Archer and Olive, and that's because one side is thicker than the other. Sometimes I feel like I have to add the pressure because this paper is thicker, if that makes sense. So that's why you can see me adding more pressure. I usually don't do that when I'm stamping, especially on my layouts and things like that. But when it comes to my Archer and Olive, I end up adding more pressure to my stamps just to make sure that I get through, the pages or the paper, especially on the left side, because those pages before that are a little bit bulkier than the right side. So that's why you see me add more pressure. And this is a good tip, just adding some paper to cover up some of your books. That way you can stamp in more books in those smaller spaces, just because that stamp set has 4 books and I just needed 2. So it's a good way to be able to add more in between the books and the shelves. Now I'm going to finish up this spread by stamping Bookshelfy, and I just thought it was cute. I do this every year. I don't know why, but I'm just going to stamp that right at the top. I believe I'm using an alpha stamp from Freckled Fawn, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just going to stamp that across. I'll grab my ruler and my pen and just add a line in between the words. And I'll grab my mild liner and add some color to my spread. This next spread is all about my Goodreads challenge. I like to challenge myself to read 50 books a year. So I'm just going to stamp Goodreads 50 because that's my goal. And I keep it very simple. I did this ahead of time because it's pretty boring. And each line is going to represent the book I read. And then I'm going to add some stars to represent my star rating. I have a favorite star stamp that fits perfectly in these small lines. And I always keep it on my desk because I always tend to forget what stamp set it came from. And if you ask me now, I'll even forget. I forgot. Like, I don't remember where I got the star stamp that fit perfectly there, but it's my favorite. I'm going to share it with you in a sec. I'm going to grab it because it's always sitting on my desk, and I'm going to fill out just a few lines here because this is pretty boring and I know you don't want to see me stamp out every single line with 5 stars. I usually just stamp it throughout the year up to 50 books. And then later throughout the year, like if I go above my 50 book goal, I'll go back and fill out the stars as well, if that makes sense. But literally, that's all I do. It's very simple. Even go into that die cut pack again, and I'm going to try to find something to add to bring in some color and cuteness. Now, I love the banner and it says all the books, but if I put it vertically, it wouldn't fit. So I just ended up adding it horizontally, and I think it looks really cute. And I'll just add some blue with my mild liner across the title and call this spread done. Let's move on to our next spread here. I want to create a Dutch door for my TBR, and this is going to be really simple. I literally just have, the numbers down one line. I want to add TBR to the one side of my TBR Dutch door, and the opposite side I thought, you know what, I don't need all of this for my TBR, so I can use a larger die cut and bring in some color. And I love this girl with the stack of books. So I ended up adding her to the corner, and now I have this little Dutch door for my TBR list. I will be challenging myself again. Every year I do this. It's my A to Z challenge. It's to read a book, the letter A to Z, basically. I never finished this challenge. I don't know why, but I still challenge myself to do it. And it's just a lot of fun. And I read more when I, try to read a book with that letter. I went ahead and stamped A to Z, and now I'm just going to grab this beautiful die cut piece to add a little color to my little challenge here. And this is why I love these die cuts, because they're just so pretty and they add a pop of color without working too hard. I also want to stamp TBR on my TBR list. Basically, like I said earlier, it's just a list of books that I would like to read in 2021. And the opposite page of this Dutch door is just going to still be my TBR list. I have more space to add more books if I needed it. Let's move on to my bingo challenge. This challenge helps me read outside of my comfort zone. I usually fill out each box with things that I don't read all the time, like nonfiction, fantasy, let's say. So I'll end up filling these out later, but I'm just gonna make this spread cute for now. End up using some of my die cuts, and I'll be stamping bingo as my title. I'll grab a mild liner and just add a little color to my title by just going through my title with mild liner. Let's finish up my spreads with my monthly review. I love this one because I get to add my favorite book and how many books I read in that month. What I'm going to do is just half each box. I will be stamping fave at the top half and then total on the bottom half. And that way, and I'll stamp it with like a subtle gray. That way, whatever I write, you can still see it. And whatever numbers I add, you'll see it. It's really, really fun to do. I love looking back on the monthly review because you tend to forget your favorites from January when it's like November. So I didn't want you to have to watch me stamp every single letter and word on my boxes or in my boxes. So I just went ahead and edited that out. I do want to fill out the boxes with the months. So I ended up using Everyday Explorer's Calendar Day stamp set to stamp out the months in each box. I'll finish up the spread by stamping Monthly Review as my title, and just bring in some color with one of my die cuts and my mild liners. And then I call my spreads done. I want to document my Reading with Hiba book club as well. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that. I'm thinking maybe Polaroids or something like that, But once I do decide, I will share it on Instagram maybe. So if you're not following me on Instagram, definitely recommend it. And also, if you want to be a part of our new book club, it starts in the month of January 2021. I definitely recommend that as well. You can follow that account at Reading with Hiba, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're already going to start reading our first book in January. So definitely recommend it. But that's about it, you guys. Don't forget, I will be linking everything that I use down in the description box for you. I'm going to go through these pages real quick so you can see what I put together. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. And I hope to see you guys very soon. Bye.